We meet every week on Wednesday. Now we're meeting on Mount Zion, Dafka, because of the Pasuk.
Yes.
And
what do you discuss?
Depends on the various things. Depends on the issues. We have a lot of different interests. One of our things that we've been very accomplished with has been the idea of Bnei Noah, which is the sons of Noah, which is the idea of the universal Torah that applies to all people, not just the Jews. And the idea, and we've done a lot of work, and recently we've done a lot of work with trying to actually push the idea with the Arabs and the Muslims and this to try and find it's a place of common ground. But we also have representatives in America. We've gone to some interfaith things using this idea as a way of sitting down with other things, the 7 laws of Noah, which are basic 7 laws of society.
I usually list them by Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled, and Shloshet HaGdolim. The 3 big ones are Shvichut Damin, Avodah Zarah, V'Gilui Arayot.
Right.
No adultery or...
sexual immorality.
Illicit relations.
Illicit sexual relations.
Illicit sexual relations are forbidden. In
No
other words,
murdering.
what I like to phrase it is having respectful relations,
Okay.
yeah, right.
All right. Once again, the 3 big ones are no illicit, immoral sexual relations, no false gods, and no murdering. Those are the big 3 that are certainly known within the Jewish area as well.
Right.
And then the other 4 are the mnemonic is Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled, the first 4 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Aleph is Ever Min HaChai, do not eat a severed limb from a live animal. Bet is Birkat Hashem, do not curse God.
Okay.
Gimel is Gzela, as you said, do not steal. And Dalet is Batei Dinim, the government, as you mentioned. So that is one way of remembering them. Thank you. Sorry for...
No, it's good, because I always... It's like, where did I start? Yeah.
People, okay.
I wanted to ask, there was one thing that had gotten some press about 6 months ago that was coming from the Sanhedrin, which was the calling out of the Pope for the stance that he took with the Palestinians. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that we actually did 71 for that, the opening court trial, and it wasn't only the Pope.
Explain what stance was taken.
Okay, it wasn't only the Pope; it was also all the European leaders, and it was all and President Obama, and the idea was calling them out that what they're doing with the agreement with Iran and with the agreement with the Palestinians, but basically by acknowledging Palestinian rights or the idea of Palestine, you're denying Jewish sovereignty here. You can't have one with the other, as the sages said. If you say that Caesarea is standing and Jerusalem is downtrodden, I'll believe you. If you say Jerusalem is in its glory and Caesarea is downtrodden, I'll believe you. But if you say both of them are in their glory, I'm not going to believe you at all.
So it was the recognition of Palestinian statehood by the Vatican, in these occupied territories, without even any responsibility on the part of the Palestinians to recognize the sovereignty of this nation.
Well, the stand of the Sanhedrin is that there is no foreign sovereignty in the land of Israel other than that of Bnei Israel, of the children of Israel, of Jewish sovereignty. That does not mean that we kick all of the non-Jews out. That does not mean that the non-Jews don't have residential rights, and the truth is, one of the things that we do fight for is the fact that we don't even think we think that there needs to be a lot more respect for the non-Jew in the land of Israel, that we actually have a huge obligation to treat them well, because by us treating the non-Jew well, especially in the borders of Jerusalem, that doesn't mean you allow them to kill you, but by treating them well, you are actually doing a sanctification of God's name. Okay, so it's a balance, and we were calling them out, hoping that they're going to to repent. We have no actual real legal authority to provide any actual sanctions, but we have what we consider, we have moral authority, especially when we assemble 72 rabbis, and we call them out publicly about their stance, and we say their stance is wrong. One of the things that's that the Sanhedrin is good, that it exists, even though it has no real legs yet, and it is only it is not in its we have a long way to go before we realize our potential, okay? And people like me may not even be sitting there when we realize the potential. It may be much bigger people than I. However, it's establishing the idea and a moral authority that's not dependent upon any government or any other type of thing, and can say the truth. We've said the truth many times. It's gotten us in trouble a lot of times too. We said the truth about the recent issues of Duma, and we try and be fair and balanced. We don't try and be one-sided. Everybody says we're one-sided, but it depends on which day it is, what side we're on, which is a good thing. We receive no government funding. We none of us are worried about losing our pension because we're government employees. And we can be a moral voice and really look at things from the idea of the Jewish law and what's really supposed to be said in regards to things like torture and such.
Okay, maybe we'll start moving over to Jubilee now.
Okay, we also did that about the same time. The Jubilee, we had a long discussion, and really that's one of the things that the great Sanhedrin needs to do. There's a mitzvah, a commandment to establish the Jubilee and the Shemitah year, the seventh fallow year or something like that. Right? The sabbatical year.
The word Shemitah is already quite recognized.
Is it? Okay.
Yes.
Right. Amongst our audience.
Okay. So now we had a large scholarly debate for many months as to when it would have been, when it was, if it's possible. One of the requirements that's often mentioned is that there needs to be the majority of Bnei Israel or Jews in the land of Israel. I can give you all the details of the discussion we have. Unfortunately, most of it's in Hebrew. Yeah. But
you took notes. I mean, there was a recorded. There were
recorded and all the source material. For instance, Ezra seems to have established the Jubilee year, or recounted. The counting of the Shemitah year, of the sabbatical year, can't be done unless you establish the Jubilee year. There's a question is whether it was reestablished on a rabbinical level or a Torah level. But it seems clear that he established it on some level of the counting of the sabbatical year and the Jubilee year, which go together.
You just said you can't count the Shemitah unless you have you have the Yovel.
It doesn't have this. It doesn't have a Torah from a Torah point of view. Yes. In other words, there's no Torah obligation for the sabbatical year, only a rabbinical obligation for leaving the land to go follow, unless you're counting the Jubilee year. If you're not counting the Jubilee year, it's a rabbinical obligation and not a Torah obligation to allow the land to go follow and not eat of the fruits of the seventh year, etc. Also, you cannot redeem slaves, which isn't a big deal at the moment. But further, there's many opinions that say that you can't have non-Jewish residents in Eretz Yisrael, Ger Toshav, unless you have a Jubilee year. That's the Rambam. The Ravad has a different opinion, but leaving all these various these details aside, there's some interesting things. Not that we can execute this thing at all, but you have to deal with what exists also. That's an important part of a court. You can't just deal with the law. You have to deal with the reality and the situation as it stands, and deal with how and try and arrive at the goal that God sets for you. However, the Jubilee year is very important. And the question is, do we count from the first year of creation? Do we count from when Joshua came in and conquered the land, which he didn't even count from the beginning, by the way? Or from when he started counting? Did it stop during the exile? Did it not stop during the exile? There's a lot of various opinions of Jewish scholars throughout the ages. Right. We came to the conclusion. Now, a bigger, better court can always change our opinion. Part of it was based on reality that we made this decision. One of the leading ideas was that it should be that this year should be the Jubilee year, and this fits with possibly
this year, meaning 5776. Right. That we started on September 14th, the night of the 13th.
Okay. Yes. However, the reason that would fit with at least one version of how it's been counted from the time of Ezra. There are other versions. The other reason is because if you count from the time that Jerusalem was redeemed, from the 6-day war, the 50, you would, and which would be a logical time to start counting. That, or in other words, we all agreed that we should have started counting then. This would be the 50th year. However, we came to the conclusion as a court that we can't start counting retroactively. Okay? That there is no legal precedent to start counting retroactively. Even though we should have started counting at that year, and also for practical purposes, that is part of a decision of a court as well, we decided that this is not the Jubilee year, but this is rather the first year of the counting of the 50. And we even said a blessing of the beginning of the year.
I had on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur?
That was actually between the two, because I can't travel on.
Right.
But I was the one that they gave the merit of saying the blessing. As a matter of fact, the video is on our website with shofarot and hatzarot, and it was all nice and wonderful. And this, we created a blessing. Daniel Stavsky wrote the blessing, and we worked on the proper
phrase
kavanot to do for the blessing and various things. And I was given the merit of saying the blessing.
What was this, a short blessing similar to?
Yeah, it wasn't a very long blessing.
What was the blessing?
I don't remember offhand. Blessed are you, our Lord God, who has commanded us in the counting of the sabbaticals and the Yovels, the Jubilees, or something along. The exact phrasing we worked out. I'm not exactly sure. And then there was also a little a small prayer before and a small prayer afterwards.
Now would that be a once in
every year on the sabbatical year, and then we counted just like we do with Sfirat Omer Hayom Yom. This is the first year of the counting of the sabbatical of the first sabbatical of the Jubilee. So that's how we did it.
So you're actually counting sabbatical years.
Counting sabbatical years.
So you're actually counting years. You're counting the years of the sabbatical.
And sabbatical, just like you do. That was what we determined what you're supposed to do. That's what we determined the mitzvah is, counting the year of the sabbatical and the sabbatical, just like you do with Sfirat Omer.
And how do you say Sfirat Omer?
The counting of the Omer.
Familiar?
Yes.
Okay, the counting of the Omer, where you count days and weeks of the Omer. It's the same pattern. Okay?
Same model.
Same model. So, in other words, part of the practical reason was twofold. One, because we don't feel that you could do retroactively. And two, the practical aspect of it is because the Sanhedrin is not accepted by all of the nation of Israel, hardly at this point. In other words, it's growing, but and more rabbis are actually seeing the benefit of it, but they all want to be in charge because that's part of the exile, and the fact that there should be, but I should be the one that tells you what to do.
What do you mean that's part one that they want to be in charge and that's part of the exile?
Part of the exile is the fact that we became fractaled.
Yes,
fragmented, fractured, and everybody's in their own autonomy, and for the good of all, it's very hard. You see that your path is the right path, and it's very hard to suggest that to nullify your. It's what we call the evil inclination of the great ones, right? The evil, normal people might have an evil inclination to take that candy bar or to maybe cheat. That people like the great rabbis up there aren't going to have that same inclination, but everybody has an evil inclination. Everybody has a tendency towards seeing things from their own perspective.
Yes,
would be the best way to say it, and so it's hard to give up the reins and to trust that everything is going to actually come out the right way. So it'll take a long time to build, and we hope that in 50 years, by that point, the idea of the Sanhedrin will be a Jewish universal idea, and therefore all of the nation has, because if all the nation isn't on the same page, it doesn't matter. So in that 50 years, it'll either get traction or it won't. But either way, we'll know where we're headed or not headed.